Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. #Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. Let's get to it. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Nathan Baws. Nathan, thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure, Aaron. Lovely to be here, mate.
I try to come up with a clever intro about my guest or about something having to do with my guest, but I didn't have something super clever. So I would like to say that you are the guest that gets 3 titles all at once here on the Keep Hustling podcast. Title number 1, furthest guest from New York City, all the way from Perth, Australia.
Woo.
Title number 2, the only guest to ever appear on Shark Tank. And title number 3, the only guest to be crazy enough to wake up first thing in the morning at 5 or 6 a.m. just to do the Keep Hustling podcast. So welcome to the early morning edition, Shark Tank edition, Perth, Australia edition of the Keep Hustling podcast.
Yay. We rocked it.
Like I'm at the 5 p.m. energy post a bunch of coffees. You're just getting rolling. So we'll see what happens in about 20 minutes. Awesome. But I want to, and I always encourage our listeners to dig to spend a minute and read the full bio before we get started. But your story, your evolution, you have the longest path in not the longest time of the guests that I've been privileged to talk to on this podcast, meaning you haven't been doing this for 60 years. And yet you've accomplished so much and pivoted your vision and your hustle along the way that I'm just curious, like, where does that come from? Where did it all start? How does that endless drive, that not being satisfied? Hey, I'm in the Guinness World Records. Well, that's not enough. I'll just keep going and do something else. Hey, I think ice baths are cool. I'll just dominate that. Okay, and then I'll go on Shark Tank. So take us back. Where does that come from?
I think the biggest underlying motivation of that is it's just fun. I just really, really enjoy it. Originally, I mean, I love business in all shapes and forms, and I've been building businesses for about 43 years. I'm 50 now. So I started off when I was 6, and there was motivation to start because of, I guess, my background and my upbringing. Single parent, usual sort of story. Single parent, not many dollars in the bank, and a significant motivation to get out of where I was and move forwards. I mean, it all started when I realized at 6 years old, the tender age of 6, I was eating a significant amount of potatoes, and I didn't understand why at first, but then sort of worked out that they were pretty cheap.
Economics.
Yes, exactly. And I remember being at my cousin's house. I went and stayed there, and used to love staying with my cousin because, first of all, I loved hanging out with him. He was about the same age as me. And secondly, I didn't have to eat potatoes. So that was a win on both occasions. And I remember saying, mate, at the end of this week, I want to make some money because I'm sick of eating potatoes. And it was that there was a sort of a mental shift that happened on that week, that we went into business and created our first business, which didn't make any money out of it, but it was putting one of our skills into action to create a business, which happened to be making paper aeroplanes. The only thing that you sort of know what you're good at 6 years old. So I guess that's where it all started.
A lost art in 2025.
Yeah, true.
Making a good paper airplane is a lost art in 2025.
You're probably right.
I found that my kids' school paper, it's gotten a little thinner than note paper, and so it doesn't quite carry the weight the same way.
Disappointing.
Yeah, we're working on it. And by the way, now they sell kits. Like, what is that?
Is that right?
Buys like here, fold on this line. No.
Oh, wow.
That will not happen in my house. You're going to do it the old-fashioned way. Don't cheat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I got to ask you about, first of all, I believe that everyone needs to find motivation somewhere, and I love the fact that now you can look back at it and say that that's where it came from. First of all, do you eat potatoes now?
Wouldn't touch them. Actually,
don't touch those spuds. Do you call them spuds in Australia? Is that what it's called?
Spuds, yeah, that's right.
Look at this. I'm a regular Australian.
Mate, you're an Australian already. Well done.
But I'll tell you what I find the most fascinating thing about your first answer, and that was you like the business thing because it's fun. And after 43 years. And I joked in the opening about you waking up insanely early in the morning to do a podcast with a guy from New York. But I would venture to say that every one of our listeners would love, and those who haven't achieved this, by the way, are jealous of 43 years in business and still have that. It's fun. I love it. Like you look like I'm listening to you and you sound like, hey, if I came to you with a new business idea that everyone else said was nuts tomorrow, you'd do it. Like you'd be
Oh,
in on it. Right.
problem is there's way too many opportunities out there, and that's another thing that keeps me excited. You know, you look around and there's so much opportunity. There's so many problems out there, and businesses are just a vehicle to solve those problems, obviously, and be rewarded for solving problems. So that's what is so exciting. Just every turn, there's some new opportunity to create, and I love the idea of creating something from nothing. I think 14 out of my 15 businesses have been starting from absolute scratch, and some people, like I got an investment banker mate, and he says just do a buyout and do a merger and acquisition and just hit the ground running. And it's like, no, there's no fun in that. I love creating it from scratch and then seeing what you can build and utilize all the creative ideas and that sort of brainstorming element. It's just so much fun just creating something out of nothing. It's
I,
what floats my boat.
I love that, but you keep doing it. So many people, even at a certain point, the entrepreneurial spirit gives way to, I don't want to say age, but how do you avoid burnout? Meaning, how do people, I assume that along the way you've had successes, but also failures. I assume.
Totally. Sure. 100%.
So,
Yeah.
and obviously it's easy to jump off the successes to another success. But 43 years, I mean, people burn out. Okay, let's take the paper airplane business when you were 6 years old and say you probably wouldn't burn out at age 7 from paper airplanes.
Hopefully not.
I mean, my gosh, a Guinness Book of World Record, and yet you would do it again. Like, I want to talk about the Guinness Book of World Record in a second, but like the number one thing that I am trying to, the number one thing that I'm trying to accomplish with this podcast is to show people and inspire people to find their hustle and keep chasing it. And if you can figure out, I feel like if you can figure out what your hustle is and what that means to you, and I've said it many times on the podcast, the stay-at-home mom, probably a bigger hustler than her husband, right? Your mother, single mother, even though all you got were potatoes, legend hustle because you at least had potatoes, right? So, but how do you avoid the burnout? Like everybody wants to know, how do you keep going?
Yeah, good question. So my background is actually as a naturopath. So originally I was trained on diet and nutrition, and that's actually played a significant role in what I do on a daily basis, as well as actually it's been involved in a bunch of different businesses over the years, health shops. I created a vitamin supplement range that are sold across Australia. So the business side of that has come into play. But I think the most important thing that I've got out of that background in health is just how to utilize health on a daily basis to enhance my business outcomes. And there's a big focus on health. So another business that I run, it's a ketogenic weight loss program, and we've set that up in hotels. We're launching around the world in the hotel sector. We've got 5 in Bali that we've started, but it's really interesting because everything that I do is related to a business outcome. So the health side of it and the mindset side of it, they're 2 massive factors. I use a lot of NLP, neuro linguistic program, like the likes of Tony Robbins, and actually just halfway through a book with him at the moment. But he's sort of Brian Tracy and Tony Robbins are involved in this book, but we're writing it, and so the mindset side of it is massive. It's so important to keep you going, and utilizing the little tools. I love the idea of bringing every tool into bring them all out of the toolbox and use them. And everything that I get excited about is all related to improving my businesses. So be it nutrition, be it optimizing brain function through what I'm eating, what I'm avoiding, having quite a disciplined diet, which I don't find a hassle. I find it fun because I know it ends in a better business outcome. So everything is sort of business driven as that. So that really helps with preventing the burnout, Aaron. That's all part of it.
What do you think is the number one underrated or secret hack on that health to business hack. And I'm going to ask you not to say ice baths because I want to get into that. And I don't think that that's like a secret. I think that everybody's into that. But like the thing that you thought would have the least impact on your business brain health that has had an impact that's kind of like surprising.
Without a question, it would be avoiding sugar. Sugar is my absolute main evil. In Australia, the average human eats 14 teaspoons of sugar per day. In America, if we jump on the plane,
Oh
wait for
God.
this
I don't
figure.
even want to know.
You don't want to know. It's 32 teaspoons of sugar per day. Now that's over 400% above the World Health Organization's safety limits, which is just absolutely nuts. That means that if you're anything over what their limit is, you're prone to disease. You're prone to diabetes and cancer and heart disease and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, all these things that obviously massively impact on your health, but also have a significant impact on your business as well. So it's a little bit scary what's going on out there.
Two things on that. But first, I think that one of the advantages that we've seen in the last 10 years, is that we're seeing that with CEOs. We're seeing that with the big businesses. We're seeing that people are starting to focus on their physical health, realizing that it has business. I mean, my gosh, just look at Jeff Bezos. I mean, just look at him. The guy is ripped. The guy is healthy as can be, or appears to be healthy as can be. I don't want to talk about Donald Trump and Diet Cokes and McDonald's, but that's a different story. But just we're seeing that people are realizing that being in adequate physical shape really helps you mentally and therefore business wise. And I don't think that was a thing a number of years ago, but I also think that that's a luxury that we have because many of us, food is easier to come by and healthier food is easier to come by. So, your mother was just scraping by with potatoes. My mother was, as an immigrant to the United States. And I look at, all amazing Jewish holiday food and none of it is healthy, but our grandparents were built differently and they could get through with that, which the joke I say is my grandfather lived to be almost 91 years old. He should rest in peace. And what got him was a broken hip, and then he got pneumonia. This guy never ate anything green, loaded salt and sugar on everything. I mean, there was no, but I guess they're built differently. But I think, I think, and I would say on your sugar point, not to get into parenting or the problems with America today, but I saw a meme recently where this guy was talking about the failure of our educational system and why kids are failing so much. And he basically said, imagine you have this kid, call him Billy or whatever. He wakes up in the morning. His parents are rushing out to work because they're both working very hard to make ends meet. So what do they give him for breakfast? A Pop-Tart or a bowl of sugary cereal because they don't want to fight with him, and B, that's easy. And then he gets to the school lunch program, and what does he get? Juice, some sort of lunch meat, and probably a Welch's fruit snacks. And then he gets home from school and his parents don't really, because they're exhausted and they get home at 6 or 7 o'clock. He gets home from school, his parents are not home. He's watching TV because his parents can't be bothered or they're not home yet. So he's with the sitter, grabs a snack. Who knows what that processed food is? And then you get to dinner and you end up just with a Happy Meal. And some people just look at that by default, but they don't realize, that kid has just consumed nothing of any value and everything that's terrible. So of course the screen, then they're not going to sleep well because they're on the screen. And then the dopamine and so on and so forth. And I just think that it's like culturally, we have the opportunity to stop that. And you're saying what I want our listeners to get out of that is you are saying that not only does it have physical benefits, but it has business and financial benefits. So for no other reason than your own financial success and your family's financial stability, get healthy and get your kids healthy.
100%. Yeah. It's interesting, Aaron, when you look back, since the agricultural age developed 10,000 years ago, and we got ridiculously good at farming. Prior to that, we were all basically living ketogenic lifestyles. It'd be the hunting and gathering, would go out into the jungle, knock an animal over the head, drag it back to the campfire and eat it. And in between, so that's the whole protein side of it sorted. And then in between that, the women would be gatherers. So they'd go around and grab seeds and berries, which is all keto as well. There was no grains. And then we thought, this is all too much hard work. Why don't we start farming? So we got really, really ridiculously good at farming wheat and oats and rice. And we just started and creating prolific amounts of all these things. We got amazing at pesticides and genetic modifications and stopping the bugs eating the food that we were growing, and all these farming practices. We
Killing
got
us on the
so
way.
good at it. It became so cheap, and then it became included in every single meal of our day. You'd have cereal for breakfast, which is grains. You'd have toast, which is grains. You'd have sandwiches for lunch, grains. Afternoon tea, you might have some biscuits or cake, grains. Dinner, you might have some pasta. So you'd end up eating grains 5 to 10 times a day, which is problematic because we're eating so many grains. These are all converting to sugar. Plus, we're eating these massive amounts of sugar on top of it, the teaspoons of, 32 teaspoons a day. Our poor little pancreases are just going in overdrive, and we're creating all this insulin, and it's affecting our business, actually. So it's affecting our energy, it's affecting our concentration and our mood, and you can't do good business with this bouncing blood sugar level. So that's what I like to bring everything back to, is how can I maximize my energy of the day, maximize my mindset, stimulate dopamine in a positive way, not like you're talking about, the social media scrolling, but how can I actually stimulate dopamine utilizing diet, utilizing mindset, utilizing things like the bath, the ice baths out there. So all these things help steer us in the right direction.
So we are 70 episodes in or so, and we have officially, maybe 60 something, and we've officially gotten to the first ice bath. And it's shocking because it's huge. I know you're the ice bath expert. So tell us about your path to ice baths, because I really want to know about it. And I have once in my life done a cold plunge, and I hated every second of it.
Yep.
I literally screamed like a whatever. But I feel like I should be doing more of it. Tell me about ice baths. Tell me about cold plunges. Tell me how you got into it. And my biggest question is, can I substitute a freezing cold shower for an ice bath?
Let me start by telling you, I freaking hate cold. All right. So I was the guy that would be on the beach, standing there for about an hour, psyching myself up just to go into the beach on a hot summer's day. And I would watch everyone else around just jumping in and having a great time. And I'm there going, this is too cold. This is way too cold.
Put the toe in, go back. I'll come back later.
Oof. Yeah, exactly. So I was that guy, and I hated it. And I watched, a mate of mine who was a surfing, and he'd just be in, boom, straight in. And I wanted to be that guy. So I wanted to be able to jump into the water in any weather and have a good swim. So I thought, nah, this has got to change. So I started going to the beach every day through summer and jumping in the water. And because I knew it would be good for my business. Again, everything's got to be related to my business. So I knew that would help because, actually, when I was a kid, when I was about 10 years old, I was quite into competitive tennis. And I'd read this book about mindset and the value of mindset in competitive tennis and getting an edge. So I realized that if I could be disciplined in my other parts of my life, then that would go onto the tennis court and help me with my game. So I gave up lollies at 10. So that was the hardest thing that I could do. But so this was sort of another continuation of that. I understood that if I could master the art of getting out of my comfort and moving forwards, then that would have a direct correlation with business as well.
I'm calling you out on that. No, I'm not jumping in a freezing cold bath because I'm saying that I'm conquering a fear. I'll do anything else. I hate spiders. I will hold a spider. You cannot tell me that that's the benefit, conquering something that's hard. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it. Not doing it.
Fair enough.
Give me something else.
Each their own. But the other benefits that I know about ice baths is that it stimulates dopamine, and dopamine is a big thing that I love to utilize, again, for business purposes. I understand understand the law of attraction, like The Secret. You've read or watched The Secret,
Sure.
the movie? Yeah, most people have. Law of attraction is quite esoteric, but it's pretty interesting because there's a direct correlation between dopamine stimulation and the law of attraction. I kind of feel there's a big connection there. So dopamine is that feel-good hormone neurotransmitter in your brain, and it makes you feel awesome, and when you're feeling really, really good, which ice baths help. In fact, ice baths increase your dopamine between 200 and 400%, which is insane. It's one of the highest
What's that? Can we just
dopamines.
define this for a second? An ice bath means
Getting uncomfortable in very cold water.
so you go, but how long? Or is your head under? What's your definition?
You only need 3 minutes. So most of the studies are done on 3 minutes, and that's enough to stimulate the immune system, to stimulate massive levels of dopamine. So it has to be, I mean, for the record that we did, that was it actually only had to be under 15 degrees. So it's not that hard. I mean, it's uncomfortable, but
Sorry,
it's
come
actually
again one more time.
so 15 degrees Celsius, that is. You got Fahrenheit, different. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. So
What was the record?
under 15 degrees. So to
And what
set
did
the
you do?
record.
What was the record?
Oh, I think it was somewhere around 7 or 8 from memory. So it's just imagine a big bath of water and just ice, probably about that thick. So it's interesting when we were in there, the water's cold, but your neckline has got about this much ice on it.
But what's that? Hold on. But what was the Guinness Book of? What was the record that you did? It was how long you were in the bath.
No, so it wasn't set on time. So 3 minutes is all we had to do. We had to do it under 15 degrees, and we were doing actually the world's biggest ice bath at the time. So
So
we had
everybody came in the pool.
yeah. We had multiple pools. So we had about 40 or 50 pools, and we had over 600 people doing it all at one time. Just the Guinness Book of World Records there to officialize it, and it had to be under 15 degrees. So it got to about 7 or 8 degrees, which is not actually that bad.
Why can't I do a cold shower?
See, that's interesting. I find cold showers actually quite hard. Yet I can jump into the water down the beach in a 2-degree day in the middle of winter, rain and really, really cold wind. I think it's just that act of just getting in. And I think, I don't know, I've got some mental barrier of turning the cold on the shower. So I'm there with you. I find that very challenging.
So again, I haven't discussed this yet on the podcast, so I'm kind of psyched about this. I wasn't planning on it, but I like this. Dopamine is like a curse word in 2025. Like people say dopamine addiction, dopamine detox, yet you're saying that if you stimulate dopamine and increase your dopamine in the right way.
100%. Yeah.
Like
Yep.
So you're saying get your dopamine fix from a cold bath, which also has which also you're conquering something that's hard. You're doing something consistently, has immune benefits, and then when you look at the screen, you won't get your dopamine that way. Like what's
So there's good and bad dopamine stimulation, and unfortunately, the bad gives you that quick hit, but it's very short term, and you end up feeling more stagnated, and you end up with almost more addiction. So you have to keep going back for another hit, another hit, another hit. So things like social media scrolling, absolute part of that. In fact, they did a study and they found that the average teenager scrolls with their thumbs the whole height of the Eiffel Tower every week. So we know there's a ridiculous amount, insane amount of social media. And we know that's totally dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit. So that's a very unhealthy stimulant of dopamine. Sugar is another massive stimulant of dopamine. Again, very, very short-lived dopamine. It doesn't stay in our body very long, gives us this hit, and a lot of people just do it multiple times a day, so they're getting these little hits, but they're very short-term, and they have a lot of following significant other detrimental effects on the body. So they're the negative side of dopamine stimulation. Positive side of dopamine stimulation, we want to be looking for things like ice baths, which is just phenomenal. Exercise is amazing. So the more intense the exercise, the more long the exercise, the more endorphins are stimulated. So for example, marathon runners have a couple of 100% increases in their dopamine. That's why they're almost addicted to long distance running. I'm not saying go out there and do that, but any sort of exercise creates an up curve for your dopamine levels. Ketogenic diets are amazing for dopamine. They mimic fasting. So the body almost goes into a fasting mode because the sugar levels are so low in the body when you're in a ketosis. And that is another stimulant of dopamine. Here's one for you, Aaron. If you want it pretty easy, listening to uplifting music increases your
Oh,
dopamine.
that's why I'm going to be a billionaire, because I love music. No, but you know what I find amazing about this whole conversation about, when you actually listen to the people who have mastered this health thing, one would think that stimulation, and this is what you're talking about with scrolling with the Eiffel Tower, that stimulation is best clicked multiple times per day, meaning
Mm-hmm.
a little hit, we'll call it a hit, but I don't mean to, use it.
Yeah,
Like a
exactly
little hit
it.
now, I'm feeling it down, I give a little hit and it gets me back up. Yet, if you look at the people whose health process is most optimized, and therefore, most importantly for our conversation, not just the physical health, but the mental acuity, most of the dopamine hit that we're discussing, happens very early in the morning.
Sure.
So
Yep.
meaning it's almost like you're filling the gas tank, by, let's say, like you would say, I would guess, best thing a person can do, and I know that you get up insanely early, but let's say even if a person doesn't get up that early, a person who has to get to work by 9 o'clock, leave their house by 8:30, a person can get up at 7, exercise,
Yep.
cold bath, eat a healthy breakfast, right?
Mate.
And now the tank is full, and so at 3 o'clock, they don't need the hit, is what you're saying, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Which, if you think about it, is incredible, right? Meaning
well,
you don't have to constantly give the juice.
Yeah. Why not utilize all the tools that we have, all the science that's there to get the results that we want? The afternoon slump, the 2 or 3 p.m. slump that everyone goes through, it shouldn't exist. That's not a thing. That's the body going, I'm not functioning at my optimum level. So, as you say, starting that day on the right track is phenomenal. But other people are getting that hit throughout the day with the sugary foods. You can still get healthy dopamine hits consistently, and that's what I love to do. So keep my dopamine levels high all day for business, for being in the mindset, for being in the zone of that. You hear people saying, "Oh, I was totally in the zone today. I absolutely nailed it." Well, that's all about dopamine and creating that energetic state from healthy outcomes and also from the mindset. You're in the zone, you're just buzzing, you're just getting stuff done. And your body's rewarding you with dopamine because it's our reward hormone. It's like, I got something done, I feel productive, boom. Oh, yeah, I feel great. So there's no reason why you can't do that consistently throughout the day with positive stimulating dopamine. As you say, get up in the morning, have a run down the beach, exercise, have a cold shower, eat a good breakfast, a protein, high fat, healthy fat breakfast, and then throughout the day consistently do other awesome things that stimulate more dopamine. Listen to great music that uplifts you. Making love is fantastic for dopamine stimulation. Not saying you possibly do that multiple times a day because that might get in the way a little bit, but all these little positive stimulating things can really, really help with just making your day fantastic and
Okay, enough
creating
about
great
making me
outcomes.
feel bad about dopamine. I want to pivot just for a second. Well, that is that's amazing. I'm going to listen to this again. What has been your biggest business failure?
Oh, I've done that pretty well.
And how did you get back up?
Yeah, cool. Failure wise, I just come off the back of a very, very successful business where I was in health shops and created supplement ranges and sold those, and I hit the 7-figure mark, and I was in my 30. I was about 35, and went with massive ego, thinking, "Oh yeah, I've nailed business. I know all about it. I can do anything." So I decided to go into restaurants, and it can be quite a challenging area. But with this massive ego, going, "Oh, no worries, restaurants, yep, let's set one up." Set the first one up, went significantly well. Actually took it on Shark Tank and pitched it there, and that went really well. And then
By the way, I just have
thought,
to correct myself. I realized that I think you were the second person to be on the show who was on Shark Tank. So I apologize about messing up the intro. I'm sorry.
That's disappointing. I think I'll pack up and leave.
That's it.
So cool. And then, so I opened another 2 restaurants and then realized that I really didn't know what the heck I was doing and wasn't as good as I thought that I'd be off the back of another successful business and started losing a significant amount of money. And they say, how do you make $1 million out of restaurants? Well, you start with 2 million and you get to 1 million pretty quick. That's kind of what happened. So I realized at that stage I couldn't turn it around, and I had a mentor, and they sort of said, well, get rid of it. And it never occurred to me to get rid of a business that wasn't working well. It was like, no, I've got to work my way through this. I've got to keep going, which was really, really stupid. And I think you got to know when to draw the line. And that was definitely one of the times that I learned that I had to get out of there, and that it wasn't a success. And to your question of how did I deal with that? How did I get over that? I found it to be at that point when you're teetering on failure and recognizing that it's totally a wipeout, then you can either throw the towel in and say, all right, I gave it a go, I've given up, that's it, I'm done. Or you can say, right, wow, learned lots of lessons here, and how can I apply those lessons for my next business? And that's what I decided that I'd do. I'd take all those learning curves out of the restaurant industry, all the failures, and bring them across and say, I ain't going to do that again. I'm going to do things a little bit differently on the next one. So I think that's how I dealt with it.
Would you ever go back into that business? Like, hey, I can cut right
No.
now? I know, but I think that that's important. I think that a lot of times people say, I realize, I think that this is where I went wrong, and it's not, it was in my strong suit, and this is what happened, right? Meaning, I assume that in a business that you saw success in, if for whatever reason it turned or it was in the wrong market, you could pivot that because you felt like it was the right thing. I think a lot of times what leads to the burnout, or what leads to people kind of not being successful, is them thinking that the problem is something other than, this business is not for me. You know what I mean? Like you're saying restaurants, not me.
Not
And I
me.
think that that's a good thing to know.
Yeah, I think you got to understand where your passions are as well, and what you're good at. And generally, you're good at what you're passionate about, and vice versa. You're passionate about what you're good at. So, and you touched on something when we first started about the listeners and finding I guess their why, their purpose. And it's something that I had early on struggled with, because everyone was saying you're supposed to have this altruistic view on purpose and helping people, or whatever that is. And I kind of feel people go about that completely the wrong way. And I guess I have a bit of a contrarian view on that, because, as I say, I've totally struggled with finding purpose until I came across the concept of actually finding what you love, and then creating a purpose off the back of that. And generally, most people don't even know what they love. They just go through life with their blinkers on, and they're not asking the right questions. And questions are incredibly powerful for deciding where you go with your life and what future you have. And the quality of your life is directly related to the quality of the questions that you ask. So all those things come into play. Again, just more tools to take out of the toolbox to create your business, to find your purpose off the back of, what do I love? What do I really, really love doing? And how can I find a business in that, or a career in that?
I love that. Wow. We got to get you back on. I got so many more questions. Nathan, we ask all of our guests to leave us with their favorite motivational, inspirational quote. I urge everyone to follow Nathan. Story's amazing. You don't necessarily have to take the cold baths. I am saying you don't have to do that, but really finding your purpose, optimizing your health so that you can optimize your mindset and your successes, and therefore you'll be able to get past the failures to continue hustling and keep hustling. So Nathan, again, thank you for being here. And with that,
Pleasure.
I will turn the floor over to you and ask that you give us your favorite motivational, inspirational quote and what it means to you and your hustle.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. Been a pleasure. I think what I just touched on, the quality of your life is directly proportionate to the quality of the questions that you ask. And as I was saying, most people go through life completely blind, just being busy. And I think if you just stop and pull back and say, okay, what do I want? Get out of the why questions, because why will leave you spinning in self-pity. Why did this happen to me? And go more for what and how. How can I improve this? What can I do differently? And just constantly asking yourself better questions will it'll be amazing where your life goes when you start getting into that mindset.
I love it. Thank you so much again.
Awesome.
This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good, and always keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. The listeners are the most important part of this show. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more listeners. Plus, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. We have some amazing guests and topics lined up for you, and we don't want you to miss out. And finally, if you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod on Instagram, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We would love to hear from you to continue the conversation. Thanks again for tuning in and supporting our podcast. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.